Well, I got some exciting news for you. To kick off this whole new What's the Situation podcast, you have a whole new website with apparel ready to order right now. No joke.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'll send you a link. What do you think I did all day today?
No way. Are you kidding me right now?
I wanted to surprise you with something here.
Dustin Grice, everybody. That's where it's at. Holy moly.
First impression?
I love it.
Ready to go. Who's going to be your first customer?
Anyone.
It could be you.
This is absolutely incredible. Welcome back, everybody, to What's the Situation podcast. I'm your host, Stefan Shergov, and today we have Dustin Grice. Dustin is not only an entrepreneur, a profound BMXer, but also a philanthropist. So we're very excited to have him in the studio.
Well, thank you. And great studio, by the way.
Thank you so much.
It's first impression, you walk in and you're like, this is legit.
It's got exposed brick and it's got white walls. It's got to be a studio.
And great tech equipment. And very clean. I mean, really.
Thank you.
It's, yeah.
I appreciate
You never know
that.
what you're going to run into when somebody says, you want to be on my podcast?
You never know. You never know. It could be a basement podcast.
Yes.
Could be a little outside, just standing with microphones by a bus station. You never know.
I think I did one time and it was like kind of in someone's kitchen.
Oh. Wait,
Yeah.
that's not too shabby.
No. And I think there might have been coffee there as well.
No way. I mean, if you don't have coffee while you're doing a podcast in the kitchen, you're probably doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Also, I do love this hat.
Yes.
And the shirts, absolutely incredible.
I didn't think we would match, or I didn't really think about that until I gave him the shirt, but now I'm also giving him the hat I'm already wearing.
I love it. Well, I want to talk about, first and foremost, crazy news for you. You're getting married.
Crazy news, you're getting married.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, we'll get into that, more of that, but the first question I want to talk about is, and I want to ask you, is your childhood. Who was young Dustin?
That's a good question. I have never really been asked that question, actually. We grew up, I was born in Buffalo, New York, actually. I was a huge Buffalo Bills fan.
Huh.
And it was odd because if there's many football fans listening, there were probably, 30, 35, going on 40 years ago almost. The Buffalo Bills went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row, and they lost 4 years in a row. And I was at the age where I knew about the team, and I knew they went to the Super Bowl every year. And then at that fifth year, they weren't at the Super Bowl, and I just couldn't get it through my head. How come the Bills aren't at the Super Bowl? But yeah, we grew up in Buffalo, New York, and my dad worked for a TV station, also in video, and they'd get a ton of snow. They get that lake effect. So we had a ton of snow in the winters, and to the point where they'd even shut down the roads, and he'd have to go out for the TV station actually film what was going on for the news. And then we were I think I was about 5 years old. We moved back here. I lived in Rochester, New York for about a year, and then moved back here to the Twin Cities, Eden Prairie area. My parents are originally from South Dakota, so I spent a lot of my summers out there with grandpa and grandma in South Dakota. And then, kind of grew up in the Eden Prairie area. I guess I got into some of the team sports for a while, baseball, basketball, football, a little bit. And then when I was in 7th grade, I got my first BMX bike.
Hey.
And my next door neighbor rode bikes, and we had actually connected our yards and had a little trail that you would start in his yard, and then you'd pedal across and get speed, and it was kind of in the woods. It was an old like deer trail through the woods.
Nice.
So we made some little dirt jumps, and then it came into our property and just had more jumps, and we grew up riding for years, just in the backyard, and then. As we got older, started going to, different skate parks or different places, especially, once we got our license and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, just at that point, I don't think there was really any other sports. It was just all bikes, you know.
Wow.
And I guess action sports a little bit. I did a little snowboarding, but not much. I think, you know, once kind of after high school, it was just all bikes, you know.
That's
pretty much
incredible.
all BMX.
That's incredible. What got you into BMX in the first place? Was it just, I got my BMX and now I'm obsessed, or what got you thinking like BMX is my path?
So my next door neighbor, for sure, Andrew, you know, having an activity like that with your next door neighbor and building and connecting your yards together like that, kind of a pretty unique thing that, you know, I mean, we were just obsessed with riding. You know, when we weren't riding, it was, you know, hanging out in the basement watching riding videos, and then as you met, you know, a few other riders or people in action sports in school, you know, you start to kind of build that friend group of others in action sports. And BMX, you know, there's not as many BMX riders as there are, say, like skateboarders. So you end up kind of hanging out with some of the skateboarders in school because that's kind of the same, you know, you see each other at a skate park or whatever. But so I kind of hung out with that group, you know, in high school in general. But yeah, it's...
Andrew, does he still ride?
No, Andrew... I remember he had issues with his wrist for a while, and eventually, I would say probably by the end of high school, he wasn't riding. And then by that time, I had kind of had my license. I started connecting with other riders at some of these other skate parks, maybe like G-Shock in Burnsville. And when you go to some of these other towns or some of these skate parks, you start to they kind of become a hub where riders from all over the city end up going to that park because there are not many parks, so everyone ends up going there, and they're usually around for a year or two, and then, unfortunately, most of them shut down, and then another one will pop up, and then everyone will go to that one, say like Jason Chanhassen or Showcase and Rogers, and so that same group of people, you know, through kind of all the cities and even outside of the cities, I mean, people travel hours to just go to that park because there's no other place to ride. So then you start building this new friend group that is from all over the state or more, you know, and then the next step is to start going out of state and going to other parks and contests or jams or events and stuff like that. And then you start building this other network of friends out of state. And then as you keep continuing from there, you start going to contests and events out of the country. And that's where, I mean, that was probably, if I look back at everything over the years, that was probably one of the most rewarding things over the years was all the people you'd meet and the traveling. And I mean, there's nothing better than, I mean, so many people I've met, even how we met.
Yeah.
Through Jason.
Yeah.
We met Jason at an event,
yeah.
And now I mean, it's just, you know, it's crazy. But that's really the greatest part of action sports.
Of course,
you know?
Yeah. Were there any, or who were the inspirations growing up? Were there like any specific BMXers that you were like, oh, I want to be like this guy?
Dave Mira for sure. You know, Dave. I mean, like in our like generation of riders, I mean, yeah, everyone looked up to Dave. I got to meet him a few times. He was at Dew Tour one year. I was riding the qualifiers in Park, and then also with Todd from QBP, we went to visit Eastern Bikes in Raleigh, North Carolina, where Dave Mira lived in Greenville, and he had his own private warehouse, and we actually got to go to his private warehouse with Lee Ramsdale and experience Dave Mira in his own private warehouse in Greenville, North Carolina. Like,
oh my gosh.
Oh man. Yeah. I don't know. I'm glad we're doing this because these aren't things you really think about often, but that was a pretty special thing, you know? So yeah, I mean, definitely Dave, but there's so many local riders and even your friends you look up to, and we push each other every time we ride, and there's always new people doing new tricks and pushing themselves and pushing each other, and even to this day, like I feel like my riding just continues to progress, and when you're going to turn 40 years old in a few months here, it's like, let's keep it going, man. I don't know.
Oh gosh, I love that. You've been riding for 2 decades, and you've been right? Is my math correct?
I used to keep count, and it was like 1 year, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, and then at like 15 years, I feel like I just didn't really think about that anymore. And then all of a sudden, it was like 2 decades plus.
Yeah.
So what am I going on 40? And let's say I started in that 7th grade-ish, maybe 13. Yeah, 27 years.
Over you're almost at 3 decades. That's incredible.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Still riding.
Yes, that's incredible. And you are a prominent figure and a BMXer in the industry. How have you noticed the industry changing since you started riding in 7th grade?
Yep.
Being a 13-year-old boy, riding with Andrew, enjoying all the tricks, watching all the cool videos, right? I'm going to bring up Andrew here.
Andrew, yeah. I got to see Andrew again. It's been a while.
Yeah. How have you seen the industry change?
Well, I think I had an interesting path because not only was I riding so much and going to different events and competing, I also finished college, and I got my first full-time job working in IT at a bicycle distribution center. So not only was I involved with riding, most of my life, now I'm actually working in the industry. And so in QBP back in Bloomington, there's probably about 500 employees at the time. I worked in IT there. So I had I was doing computer programming type of work, which is a great balance in life. Computers and bikes always worked out well. Still do that every day, even today. So I kind of had this industry perspective as well, and I got to go out to the big annual trade show every year in Vegas, Interbike, and just see all the new products, meet a lot of the bike company owners and vendors, and it was just, I really another special thing that you don't really realize until later. It's like, wow, this is cool, and so I built a lot of that over the years as well. But just seeing the industry change over the years. Look at the bike parts. Yeah. Look at you'll have to lift my bike up because you'll probably be pretty surprised at how lightweight the bikes are now.
Yeah.
But in that time, probably 15-ish years ago, Eastern came out with this titanium frame. Just the technology, how they're doing the tubing, where they're cutting areas out or where it needs to be stronger than others. The weight of a lot of pieces dramatically changed. The sprocket, the size of those reduced, and everything just started changing, and even the bolts, you put a titanium bolt in versus a normal bolt, and it's only a fraction of the weight, but you do that with multiple bolts, and all of a sudden you lose a pound or 2 pounds, and then even the tubes, they came out with these lightweight tubes, and then you have what's called rotating weight, and the lighter that tube, even the steel bead in the tire, that went away. So then you have these folding tires that aren't steel beads, and you're dropping weight there too. So, and then all the spokes, that went to tie. And not everyone rides tie, but when you talk about how things have changed over the years, over the last 20 years, it's definitely a lot of the bike parts have definitely changed. And surprisingly, I'm on my same bike that I've ridden. It's probably almost a decade now, 10 years, same bike, same wheels, same everything. I've probably changed grips a few times, maybe the tires, but for the most part, frame, wheels, bars, fork, cranks, everything. Maybe changed pedals once. Pretty surprising in 10 years.
Wow.
So, and I mean, I try to ride weekly or, every other week, definitely more in the summers, less in the winters. But, so yeah, the strength is still there as well.
Are you going to tell people what you ride, or are you keeping that a secret?
Bike?
Yeah, you keeping it?
So one of Dave Mira's, I imagine close friends, Mike Laird, started building his own custom frames for people. So I wanted to support that. I love other entrepreneurs and people who are doing things, especially in our industry, because it's so small. But like even, something as simple as having a subscription to the magazine companies. They're not that expensive. Like I felt like it was not only exciting to get the magazine, but you're supporting, some of the businesses in BMX. But Mike Laird, you could send requirements for your frame. You choose the color, you choose all the geometry, the angles, everything. He'll even weld above the back wheel. It's kind of like a brace that connects the fork. You could have your own custom design. He would cut it out and weld it into the frame. So if you wanted to do like your own logo, ride logo, or something like that, he would actually weld that into your frame. And and then every frame he does, he would on the bottom of the bottom bracket, he would add the frame number. So I have number 231, and that was his 231st frame he built for someone. So, and shout out to Jeff from the Link Foundation, because we kind of worked on that together, and Sean, who came up with all the geometry for that. But the bike's amazing. And for a long time, I rode a longer frame, and I decided with that one I'd go a little bit shorter for more like technical tricks. And I love it, so still ride it every day. Incredible.
Do you, in the industry, do you feel like there's less and less riders these days? And if so, why?
That's a good question. I don't even know if I can really answer that. I think, we just, when I was doing more of the contests and traveling events and stuff like that, I'd know more of the current riders and stuff. Now, we kind of just do our own thing here in Minneapolis. We had our bike park that's kind of on pause right now, but we still do a lot of the shows, the entertainment at events, so as far as the rider, we have a group here locally, kind of the crew we do jumping with all the time, and there's almost a couple dozen in that group locally. So I feel like locally, there's still a lot of talent out there. When we had the facility, there's a lot of younger kids. So those I'm just not as aware of without our facility. But across the country or even outside, it is interesting because every once in a while you see a clip of someone doing some random super crazy trick, and you'll look and be like, who's that? I've never even heard, you've never even seen their name ever. And I feel like there is more and more of that, and you're like, where did this kid come from? And it gets younger and younger and younger. I think it was like a 12-year-old who did a triple flip. Like it's outrageous.
Dang.
So I feel like it's still out there. There's still a lot of riders out there, and also the equipment is that much better. Look at how many trails are around the cities now. I mean, and not even just BMX, but mountain bikes and everything. There's so much more to ride. 20 years ago, it was nothing like that. So there's more equipment. There's more places to ride. So in a way, there could even be more.
Interesting. And to your knowledge, when you started or that time, was there more riders when you started, or is there more riders now?
That's a good question. Even just of recently, we've been going to Third Layer, which shout out to Third Layer and Mark, Emerald, Trog. Like, Third Layer is one of the longest running parks ever in the world. And I don't think many people realize that. And they've been here locally for so long that it's just kind of, it's Third Layer. Like, they've always been there, And so I think, sometimes we don't realize how lucky we are to have that. But we've been going to Third Layer. I think we're going again tomorrow, but for probably the last 6 weeks, like every week. So we've been riding the bowl out there and seeing how many riders have been around. I did notice one day it was like 40 degrees and like the number of riders was like, it was almost empty. And that's the challenge with these parks. But go back when it was 0, 10, 20 degrees, you maybe have a couple dozen riders out there. So that is a really good question. I don't feel like I have a really good answer for.
Totally fine.
But
totally fine. Let's talk about the Polar Plunge.
There's always someone to ride with, if that answers.
Good. It's always nice to ride with somebody. Like you and I both share like the love for electric bikes,
which I'm very brand new to. But yes,
but we love it, right?
Yes.
I like to snowmobile and think about like when you sit on an electric bike. Like I can speak to that because I don't BMX and I wish I did. I did try growing up and I told you that story. But when you sit on electric bike by yourself, it's not as enjoyable as when you get a buddy system going and you're like trading secrets, like you and Andrew. I'm sure it was.
And you ride together.
And you ride together and you have a blast and you go out and you do those cool tricks and then you go down to the basement and watch cool videos and then go back up and try to learn those things on. I think it's incredible to have that buddy system for sure.
Oh, for sure.
Let's talk about the Polar Plunge. So the Polar Plunge is something that I want you to talk about.
It's something that you missed.
Now, why I did, I was in the Bahamas, but I was really, really excited to go to it, and I still will. I don't know if my buddy Matt came out or not. I hope he did.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a lot of people. I saw photos. It's a lot of people. So answer me this. Why in the world would one want to do a backflip into completely ice cold water on a BMX bike? And I mean, it just blows my mind. The pictures are incredible. The tricks are awesome. But talk about the cause. Talk about the Polar Plunge. I'd love to hear all about it.
Yeah. Well, riding over the years, we've been to so many different events and ridden so many different, types of. I come from this generation of like, you ride everything. You ride dirt. You ride vert. You ride park. You ride flatland. Like you ride everything. And so, growing up in Minnesota and, as you get older, I always remember like New Year's Day, they do this like Polar Plunge in the middle of winter. And I was always so curious about it. And I was like, it sounds crazy, but it sounds kind of fun. But I never really had any connection to it or knew anyone who did it or anything. And so, Jeff and I went to Alaska years ago, and we met this guy in, I think it was Haines, Alaska, and he was worked for he was a sheriff or something, but his kid raced BMX. Huh. And so I remember we started talking about this idea, and so I feel like this all kind of started on this Alaska trip, and I remember trying to see if they would be open to something like that, but it was with where we lived and everything, like it just wasn't realistic. And then so then that thought, it's like, okay, can we do it here? And so I really need to go back and look at some old emails and everything and kind of repiece this together. But from what I remember, I was not getting a yes. Like it was not easy to try to bring this to the Polar Plunge. And then my best friend from growing up, Chris Walker, who lived down the road, and actually Andrew, and then moved in between us as well. Chris Walker worked at the Zorbas, and Zorbas hosted a Polar Plunge with Special Olympics. So I pitched it to Chris, and this was up north in Grand Rapids. And Chris, he was all for it. And then we connected with their local law enforcement, and we tried to put this together. And Chris basically said, hey, if they don't allow this, let's just go right next to the plunge and do our own plunge. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And so that was kind of what we were planning on doing. But then after we started working through it, they said, let's do it. So, and this was, small town up in Grand Rapids, smaller, much smaller in general compared to what they do down here. And then it was time to fundraise and raise money because I'm going to jump a bike into the plunge. And so that was a whole other side that I was like, holy cow, or like, is this really happening? Like, it's our one opportunity, first impression, like, let's go in and, you know, do the best we can. And so I started to film some videos, trying to fundraise or whatever, which is probably one of the most difficult things ever. It is not easy. So shout out to anyone who's ever raised money, because it is extremely difficult. And so we got down to the last few days, and usually the fundraising all comes those last couple days, because it's like it's right then when it's happening. And we did a little live thing that day, and more people kept chiming in and donating, and so then it's time to jump, and so back then we just brought our ramp, we set it up next to the plunge site, and then now there's all this snow. We didn't have a starting ramp. There's no lumber, nothing to ride on. You'd ride on the ice, which was deep in snow, and I had the fat bike, and I was like, there's no, like, I can't get speed for this, you know? And so we're trying to shovel. I rolled some carpet down. I'm trying to figure it out. And I did a couple run-ups, and it's kind of, you know, people were watching, like, is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? And then I wouldn't have enough speed, and I had to go back. And I think they were thinking, like, I think he's scared. He's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. And where I'm like, I can't get speed. Like, I got to, you know, and then so finally I just try to push through and, you know, at least get off the ramp into the water. And there was probably a decent, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet before that, the water. And I went up and flipped, and I was fine. I could have had more speed for sure, but went into my first plunge, and this, like, so if you plunge and it's only like waist high, you stand up and you're like, okay, like, it's cold, but you're pretty much out of the water. This first plunge was like neck deep. And I have you ever fallen in the water or anything? Fallen through the ice?
I used to cold plunge quite a bit.
Okay.
But not polar plunge, cold plunge.
And I watched some videos on, like, ice fishermen, and if you fall through, what do you do in an emergency? They said the first thing is just stay calm, and your body goes through like 3 waves of shock, and you're supposed to just wait it out until you get through that, and then start to, you know, work your way out or whatever. So anyways, I'm like neck deep in this cold water, and I feel this, like, you don't know what's going on. And then so I just waited, and then that first wave came through, and then the second and the third, and I was just like, okay, you can't, you know, you figure out what's going on, and then you grab the bike and work your way out or whatever. But since that day, I've never had a plunge that deep or that intense. But the very first plunge, as soon as we landed, got out, we raised $10,000.
Wow!
In that first plunge.
Amazing.
So it was, so I wanted to make sure we created a really good first impression. Everything was safe, and you know, we made a statement of what we raised. And so the next year they asked if we wanted to come down and bring it to the cities. So we did, I think, 3 lakes that next year, and we built the roll-in. We had scaffolding and everything. It was it was a ton of work, but we continued fundraising, and we did 3 lakes. And then that next year we kind of just went down to their main Minneapolis plunge, was the largest plunge. And now we've been back every year. They skipped COVID year, but we've kept fundraising. Last year we hit a grand total of $50,000 over the years, and now we just did another 10. So thanks to everyone who's donated. We're now over $60,000 since 2018, and I've kept track of every single name who's donated to our plunge. And if you go on our plunge page on the site, every single name who's ever donated to us back to 2018, your name is on that list. So thank you.
Wow, that's
pretty cool.
Incredible, man. I'm getting chills.
Pretty cool.
That is so cool. Holy
Just wait till you jump in the water. You really have chills.
Oh, dang. So I have some questions, probably more logistical. Maybe I should ask him after, but I'm just going to ask him now. So when you land, maybe someone out there also has these questions, because I would if I was listening to this podcast. Do you tie the bike to you, or like, how do you fish it out again? Or is the Polar Plunge built completely? It's not like a lake.
Yeah, so they cut out probably a 20 by 30 foot type of hole in the ice. And then the dock that everybody plunges actually has like boards that go down. So you can't like sink under. And then when you walk out, there's a staircase. You walk up and out. So if you it'd be, and then they have divers in all corners and plus a few extra. So it would be extremely difficult even if you like purposely tried to like get under the ice or something. Like there's no way. And usually it's only, like I said, waist deep, but you might have 2 feet of ice. Ooh. So now, in order to get under you might only have a foot of water actually under the ice. So it's not that deep. It's not that, so, but yeah, as soon as you land, as far as a bike goes, I've done a lot of plunges with a fat bike. Those tires everything just floats.
Okay.
And then this year was the first year I did with a non-fat bike. And even with those, I think they do go under a bit. Actually, we got on this thing a few years ago, going back to friends motivating each other and, inspiring each other. I wanted to learn double flips, and after a couple trips and really taking the right steps to safely do it, I learned double flips, and so I wanted to. Most of the other guys have double flipped into the plunge, and so I felt like it was my year to do it, and so I double flipped into the plunge, and as soon as that bike landed, no joke, my face and everything was like sand, flat bottom. I was like down, like flat bottom on the sand, and it was just like, it was the impact and everything. I just sunk right in.
Whoa!
So not that it was a painful or anything, but I think it was just kind of funny. And I had goggles on. The goggles like broke off, and I just remember just feeling all sand on the bottom of this frozen lake, and then just getting up. And but a couple of the guys. By the way, my watch is still somewhere in the lake from last year. We have lost 2 GoPros, which I think both of those were actually found. But Kyle dove like head first in one time. It'll never happen again. But he came out with sand just drooping down his face. It was like sludge from the bottom of the lake.
Dang.
So, yeah. Thank you, Special Olympics, for letting us.
That is so
have
much
fun.
So much fun. Is there ever like a worry in your head? Because I can imagine like double flip is an intense thing. Like you have to know what you're doing. Like you're going one time and then second time. I mean, it's a lot. Like I would never be able to. Never is a hard word. It would take me years and years of education, probably 2 doctorate degrees to get a double flip. It's intense, right? And you can do it, which is epic. Do you ever have that fear, like when you're sitting there and you're like, will I actually make it into the cold plunge? Or will I make it outside the cold plunge? Or you're just never worried that it's going to be a straight line for you? Or maybe some of the riders, they know, like, what if you make it straight up on the ice?
Like you're going to miss the hole or
something?
Yeah. When you ride as often as we do, like, to hit a jump, like, to veer off to the side is, like, there's like, unless there is a mechanical failure of the bike, like it's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it's like there's, and we make sure that some people reach out and they're like, oh, I want to plunge, or I want to jump the bike into the plunge or whatever. I'm like, come ride with us in the summer first, and before, because we only have I think it's 18-inch plank to actually ride and hit that ramp. And so going down the roll-in, you got to pedal, and then you got to pedal on the flat ground. And even sometimes I see myself, like, even this last time, going to the double flip, I was veering off to the right, and I knew I was getting pretty close to the edge. And you gotta be on it. Like, you got to know what you're doing for sure. And that's why we have a very, limited group that actually does jump into the plunge.
That's incredible.
So, but yeah, I always wonder what it's like for a random person to kind of, arrive at the site and just see this. It's a big jump. It's 5.5 feet tall. It's a big jump, and so, I just wonder what their thoughts are. Like, what is that? Like, I don't know.
Oh gosh! Now talk to me about Minnesota State Fair and the Nitro Circus. You did some really cool stuff there. I'd love to hear all about it.
Yeah, I mean, State Fair, when I turned, I think I was 15, maybe at the time they said you had to be 16, and then my birthday is right August 28th during the State Fair, and I happened to turn 16, and then I got to ride my first show at the State Fair with Third Layer. So Third Layer's run those shows over the years, and so that was the start of pretty much 20 years at the State Fair. So and it was crazy back then too, because we would do shows every day, 12 days in a row, and you'd have 7 shows a day. So 7 times 12, I don't know, 72 or something like that. Like we'd do like 70 some shows in a 12-day, and so like day 3, 4, 5. I mean, you were feeling it, and then all of a sudden you get kind of used to it, and like, but yeah, I mean, some of the greatest memories are from the fair, and even just hanging out in between shows, but yeah, huge thank you to Emrod and Trog and just all the riders and super fans who've come to see our shows over the years there, year after year. I mean, some people would come up and you'd sign their shirt that you had signed like 5 or 6 years in a row. Yeah. And then you add another signature and another name or another year.
Epic.
I mean, it's pretty cool. So,
I love that. So people see you as a BMX celebrity. Let's talk about behind the scenes. You're an entrepreneur and an educator. And I don't think a lot of people know this about you. Could you talk
probably
more?
Not. Yeah, probably not. I think any of my, I'm on like a well over 5-year break on social media, but a lot of my content over the years was like always riding related or action sports related, which a lot of people are. When you go to their, they kind of focus on what they love and share it, So, but yeah, that most people probably don't realize I had a background in building websites. That's what I went to college for, and so while I was riding, I was also always building websites, and so that's how I could afford to go to a lot of these events or contests or travel overseas or whatever. Most people are like, how does he afford to do that? I'm like, I'm working. Like, that's what I'm doing. I'm working a lot, and the more you work, the more you can afford to do different things. And so I would, spend nearly all my money on traveling and, going to these different events and everything. So, but yeah, having that background, then, it led into, my old instructor, Paul, reaching out, a mentor of mine,
Nice.
saying, would you be interested in teaching a class at the college? And so it's been almost 10 years, teaching. And I look at, I've taught a lot of bike or like riding over the years as well, whether it's going to Woodward or some of the camps, or even at our bike park here. Just teaching. It could be specifically lessons, but also just even when we ride with each other, there's just a natural helping each other and motivating each other and like, oh yeah, you can do that. Like just pull up a little bit more or lean a little more forward or like, and so I think there's just naturally kind of always that teaching side. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, then going into class, it was like, very similar thing for another thing I really enjoyed doing, building websites, because I feel like I'm lucky to find something that not only I enjoy hopping on a bike and pedaling, I enjoy hopping on a computer and writing code, and
you built me a website.
Yeah.
Of my merch, and I gotta give you a shout out for that. Yeah. Like, think about that. Like, what's the situation now? Has a website that has merch.
Yes.
Which is something we got to talk about. Life brand. I mean, yes. That started in 2015, right?
Yeah, with basically the hat you're wearing. I mean, these flat brim hats were like the OG, like the original, And
I need it signed, so don't leave without signing my hat, please.
Silver Sharpie.
I got a regular black Sharpie back there for sure.
Yeah. So those first hats, I think I just started with like 50 hats, and then just had them in the back of my car, and wasn't sure how long it would take until I needed to place another order, but I think it was only a few weeks, and then I think ordered 100 hats, and then just kind of went from there and started adding some other pieces. Then family and friends had asked for, can you do our state or add Wisconsin or California and all that, and so we just started from scratch and started to figure out what to do, how to do it, and over the years there've been so many great people who've helped contribute to figuring it out as well, and so we have a great team now. We're in the third building we've been in, and my buddy's business, Imprint Engine, we've always been in the same building together. From their first to the second to the third, we've always been together in the same space. So that you'll have to stop by our facility as well. But there is a strong entrepreneurial type of spirit in that space, and it's just I mean it's cool because everything is built from scratch, and 15 years ago, none of it exists, and you just start something one day, and how where does it go, and same with our bike park, that was asking the community who's all interested in chipping in for our own warehouse space, and you have like 50 people like, oh yeah, that'd be awesome,
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, maybe if half of them actually follow through, like we'll have enough to cover this. And then so we basically signed the lease on the space, and we went to collect money. Guess how many actually paid?
All of them?
6.
Darn it!
Like right out of the gate, and it was like, okay, we got rent to pay, like and so yeah, you learn a lot over the years, but yeah, there's nothing better than look at your space here. Yeah. Like this didn't exist without the thought, an idea, and most importantly, taking action and figuring it out. Well, how do I get a space? How do I lease? Who do I talk to? What do And now what? You've been here 2.5 years, like
2.5. Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Thank you.
You can do anything. You can do anything. Like just do it. And there's always going to be challenges, and some things are going to be more risky than others, but weigh it out and give it a shot. And there's always ways to take a big idea and kind of break it down into smaller little ideas and baby steps. Work your way there.
Calculated risks.
Yeah.
There's such incredible
even with bike tricks.
Yeah.
Like, no, I didn't go for the double flip right out of the gate. I waited like 30 years. Like it's like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And even when you're learning the tricks, like you start small, work your way up. Just like everything else.
Absolutely. What similarities do you see between? I think you have such an incredible balance of these two. So I'm actually very curious about this question. What's the similarities you see between BMX and entrepreneurship?
Let's see. Great question. BMX and entrepreneurship. Well, you can get very creative. You kind of have a open canvas to explore, to use however you want, and if you're on bikes and you want to go racing, you want to do freestyle, or you want to just collect bikes, or you want to open a bike shop, or you want to, or do bike shows, like there's so many different paths with that canvas in bikes. Same with the entrepreneurship world. Like you can do anything, and are either easy? No, they're both very difficult, and you're gonna slam, and you're gonna slam again, and you're gonna slam again, and it's gonna hurt. Woo! And then you're gonna get back up and you slam again. Like it's just like it's part of life.
Yeah.
But that's, you take 20 or 30 years of slams and slams and slams, and you learn from it. You get stronger. You just keep moving forward. And it's odd. Every once in a while, someone will ask about falling. I'm like, you actually as odd as it sounds, you kind of learn how to fall. And same within entrepreneurship, you learn how to fall. Like, if you're in the middle of a trick and something ain't right, like, you can usually get out of it in a safe way after you've learned the hard way a few times, And same with, just keeping an eye out for certain situations. We're actually having some challenges with delivering some orders right now because of actually UPS dropping the ball. Sorry, UPS. But we're now like learning from this and how, we set these expectations with the client, and now we're actually late. It's not our fault, but it's still not a good impression on the client. And so we're, once again, learning. I feel like we did take a slam, and the whole situation is still not even figured out. So we're still dealing with that. So shout out to everyone at the office: Rob, Alex, Jake, Pua, Joni. My mom's been there
Nice.
with us as well. She's had a brand new knee replacement, so yeah, I mean, there's just always something, and it never gets easy. It's always, but it is always fun. You do always wake up and, the days that you have an opportunity to come to your place or what, it's still a great day. It is. I love this spot, by the way.
Thank you. And I think taking an L, Grant Cardone, he talks about being better under pressure.
Oh, yeah.
And I took that to heart. I think it was like 7 years ago. And I was like, anytime I'm under pressure, I'm like, I can do better. If somebody is under pressure, that's a big tell. Not a judgment, but a big tell of who is this person?
Yep.
Will they get extremely red and angry?
Yeah.
Will they get?
Yes.
Will they be like, hey, I got this? It's who's
Yeah.
How are they going to react? I'm always like, how is this person under pressure? Like, if I could do an interview hiring people and I could be like, just putting them under the most incredible amount of pressure, that's what I would do.
Someone's breaking into your car right now, and we need to continue this podcast.
Yeah. What are you going to do about
show them live? Like, oh my, Yeah,
Oh,
you're right.
gosh.
And even thinking about, BMX entrepreneurship, like going back to riding bikes and being under pressure at events and contest runs. You got 2 minutes to do everything you can. You got one chance. And sometimes you blow it, sometimes you don't, but you learn from those. And even in running the business, it's like you never know what curveballs you're going to get every day. And, how do you handle all these situations? Something breaks, the trailer breaks down, the car, vehicles breaking down. I mean, that's I've always been pretty frugal with vehicles over the years. And yeah, after having I think I was on the side of the highway probably 7 or 8 times 4 or 5 years ago. And I finally hit a breaking point with vehicles. I'm like, all right, I need something reliable. And so I had a kind of a change. I kind of grew up with some of the, as far as vehicle, having a reliable vehicle. It took 20, 30 years to learn that the hard way, probably 30 times or more, But yeah, what do you do under pressure, And same with these boxes not getting next day air when they need them next day, and now it's been a week. Like, how do you handle that with the client? How do you handle that with the rest of your team?
Right.
How do you, it's like, it's...
Your truck is beautiful, though.
As is yours. We ironically have a very similar truck. And I've never even been a truck guy, ever. I never was actually into trucks. But if I've learned one thing over the years, when you have the right equipment to get the job done, it makes the job that much easier. And so now all the equipment we have with some of the trailers and everything, when we do events now, it's so turnkey, bringing the right equipment in. Everything's on wheels as you roll things around. Like, it only took 20 years to figure that out. But yeah, having the right equipment is definitely an essential piece that I feel like would have been nice to learn earlier. Yeah, it's.
But it's good that you're here, And you're saying this especially to certain entrepreneurs or bikers, or I don't know if you call a BMXer a biker, but nevertheless, do you?
Biker and biking is like a rare, like we usually say it when we're kind of being funny. But yeah, I'm going to go biking, or I'm a biker. It's pretty rare, but it's humorous when you hear it,
Now, I was trying to be humorous for sure, because I don't know the proper terminology. But it is nice that you can share some of these experiences with entrepreneurs that are not sure of where to start, what to do. Like, it's the inspiration. It's the, hey, let's keep this pushing and let's do that. For the last 10 years, I'm going to pivot a little.
Yep.
For the last 10 years, you've been announcing and advocating against bullying.
I've done a lot of anti-bullying shows. Yeah.
Why is that cause important to you?
Well, it started with the contest that was here in the city, and then it went to Milwaukee, and I think I went to Chicago, and then went to that one. And then this company that put on these events, they do these high school tours, the ASA high school tour. Shout out to Rick and everyone there. The high school tour, originally, from what I understand, it was like an anti-tobacco campaign, and then over the years that kind of shifted into anti-bullying. And so a lot of those programs now we bring into schools, and there's usually a sponsor that travels with this tour, and it's been the Marines over the last probably the last 20 years. And so yeah, I did about 10 years of those shows, originally as an athlete, and then as we had our own shows, I would announce more on our own a little bit, and then I think over the years, being at so many different events, I started to recognize, like, wow, this is a good announcer. Or the way they run this, or the production of this, or how they sound, how they introduce all the athletes, like, some shine more than others. And so I think I don't know, just kind of naturally started. I always kept that in mind when I would go on the microphone, and then a couple times I think I just filled in, and then some of the others just kind of recognized, like, wow, he might actually be good speaking, or doing hosting the whole event, and so I think I just started to transition out of those shows from riding into just announcing, and and probably going back to working with other riders or teaching or working at the school and stuff like that. I think I probably have a friendly approach to, talking and hopping on the microphone and saying hello to 1,000 students in a gymnasium. I don't know. I did it a couple times, and they kept having me back. And it's funny when I look at or watch any old clips or whatever, and just kind of hear, when you hear your voice, you're like, oh, God. Yeah. There's still, I feel like I've come so far over the years, just by practice and, continuing to improve that type of skill. But yeah, if I hop on the mic now and it's been a few months, like, you still get that, kind of butterflies or whatever. Like, everyone's, even like the first day of class, everyone shows up, and when you go to school, you're sitting in a chair and you're looking up at the instructor. And so all of a sudden now you're the instructor, and everyone is staring at you. They're waiting for you, the very first move from you. And you're like, okay, well, only 70% of the kids are here. Do I start? Do I wait a little bit longer? Do we talk about something else in the meantime? And it's like, it's I don't know, it's fun, but I think I just, typically have a pretty casual approach with it, and even, I don't know, I love doing it though.
Perfect. I love that. And then the bullying aspect is just something that you've just started doing. You're like, I'm just going to speak and stay strong on this. And
Yeah.
It wasn't like an incident that happened to someone close to you or yourself.
Yeah, I mean, originally it was working with ASA and the program they had.
Yep.
And then, just as we actually went into more of these schools, I learned how big of a deal it actually is. And when you're out of high school and out of college and it's been 10, 15, 20 years, you don't really know what's going on in these schools.
Yeah.
And I don't have kids yet.
Hey!
So you're not really thinking about that. And so as I went into some of these schools, you would start, after so many, you'd start to notice things that this actually is a big deal, And so the biggest one was, you have physical and verbal bullying, but the cyberbullying and all the online stuff. And we all see comments online, negative stuff, whatever, and it's like, how do you handle that? And like, I can't imagine being in high school now with these digital platforms, these social platforms. Like, I can't imagine. And how do you go to class? Like, what do you do, And so, especially with the cyber side of stuff, we went in some schools that, in 10 years, I think there was 2. One was within the past week, and the other was it was the night before. One of the students tried to kill themselves and ended up in the hospital, and then that got to staff, and then staff had let us know, hey, this just happened. We're going to move forward with everything, but just no one really knows about this yet, and so they told us to proceed like we would, but until you go into some of these, you just have no idea. I mean, it's and when I think back of being in school myself, do you remember a speaker ever going to your school?
A speaker? I was homeschooled. I'm the worst person to ask these things. I was homeschooled, and then I went to college, 16.
Okay. Anyone
grad
listening,
school, 19.
Do you ever, in all of school, do you ever remember someone showing up
Let me
at
call
school
my wife.
and speaking to school? Yeah. So 'cause I remember it I remember a handful, and they're probably one of the more memorable memories I have from, maybe not necessarily definitely not any of the names, but I remember these faces and them coming in and speaking to our classes, right? And so it's like we're doing maybe a 30-minute assembly, and it's like, just by spending 30 minutes with a class or a gym of 100 or 1,000 students, I mean, those 30 minutes could change how many lives?
A lot.
And just going in with kind of our natural selves, our natural energy, and sharing what we love doing, but also with a motivated message behind it. That alone, you don't think about these things, like how much that can have an impact on someone. But
that's huge. That's huge. I remember I shoot for a cheerleading team, and I remember they invited 2 FBI agents to come and speak. It was primarily ladies, a couple guys, but cheerleaders are typically, I'm not stereotyping, typically in that room, it was 98% ladies. And the FBI agents were talking about how, and I thought it was straight out of a movie. I was like, this is like one of those hostage situation movies. I'm like, this is real life. And they were talking about sending like people on the on the internet, like these stalkers or whatnot, will ask for provocative photos of underage girls, and then say, if you don't send me $10,000 right now, I will expose you, and that makes them suicidal. And I was thinking, like, how messed up is that? How crazy can one be to do that to an underage boy or girl? It breaks my heart. It just breaks my heart. So I salute you, and I think you have an incredibly empathetic and kind heart to go out there and and speak up. Because yes, I'm more than certain that like I've had like speeches and talks that I've been to that are so memorable, and they've changed the direction of my life because one thing or another person or a group or somebody said something, and it's like, wow. And it's just, it sits here. And then you walk with it and you're like, man.
And probably won't mention any names, but one of my dad's great friends from work over the years that we've been closer to than any other coworkers. They had an only child, and in St. Louis Park, and there was a bowling situation. This was probably maybe 10 years ago-ish, and I think some kids kind of turned around the words he had maybe said, or maybe it was a joke or something, and they kind of twisted what he said or whatever. And to the point where, from what I understand, he didn't want to go to school, and then I think within a few days, I think it was the principal that wanted him to go meet or see him at the beginning of the school day, and from what I heard, that morning, he waited for his mom to leave, and then it was just his dad and him at home, and he shot himself. And so that next week, I went with my dad to his funeral, and this is in St. Louis Park, Hopkins, and it was right, which ironically, I live off Shady Oak now, and I'm not far from here, but it was in the funeral home there, and I remember going to the funeral home, and it was like, there were hundreds of students that all showed up, and like out the door, and it was just like, all this just came out of nowhere. Like it was like, so that one, definitely hit me the hardest, just having just being connected with someone like that for a long time. I mean, this is someone my dad has worked with for 20 plus years. So we have to do something, like,
We do.
and if that's taking some bikes into a gym and just sharing some stories, and like that alone might do it, and a lot of times, I remember someone said to us, like, I know what you did. You tricked the students into listening to you guys with your bikes, but you're really sharing this other message, and so, yeah.
That's beautiful, though.
I don't know. I hope what we're doing is a good thing, and I don't know, if anyone's ever watching or listening, and we've crossed paths in the past at a school or something like that, shoot me a message. It'd be cool to hear from you,
Heck yeah. On this topic, what's a piece of advice you would give to somebody struggling with confidence, mental health, or feels doesn't belong, right? Like, I know you do an incredible amount of work in this, like, you try as hard as you can, right? With the bikes, with the events, but what kind of piece of advice would you give them?
I think learning to ignore comments is such a, especially when it comes to social media and, just being comfortable with, or like learning how to ignore certain things and don't let them get to you. The other thing is, a lot of times someone might leave a comment on something that they might not even think is harmful, but you might take it harmful. And so just realizing that this might not be what they actually mean, but I'm just gonna let it go. Especially if you're a content creator and you're sharing stuff, like I've had a lot of different projects over the years. One of my first large projects was mnbmx.com. It was all Minnesota bike scene. We shared what was going on. This is when I was in college, and then it turned into another site, InterBMX. Dude, I would get so much crap. Like, just anytime you try to do something, like, there's always going to be those type of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're never going to not experience that stuff in life. And so you got to learn how to, first of all, see it or read it or listen to it or hear it or whatever it is, and then get through it. Like, you can either let it tear you apart or just keep riding, so yeah, just knowing when to, and sometimes you see that stuff and you just delete. They just get rid of it, so it'll never enter your mind again.
Yeah,
it's gone. And if figure out what it is that helps you, and do it. And I mentioned I've been off social media for probably 5 years, and it's been great. I mean, the amount, and it was at the point where, like, average, how they show your time on apps or whatever?
Yeah.
It'd be like 2 hours a day or something. And I'm like, that's almost half a work week at 14 hours or a week. And so, like, wait, and so I remember going through, what was it? I think the election years ago, and then all of COVID and the riots and everything. Like, it was just, I was offline for all that. And then you see all, like, friendships starting to tear apart because of a lot, and so I don't know. I teach a social media class at school, actually, at the college at Hennepin Tech. But we go into this topic about social media and how we went through this wave. Stephen, how old are you?
28.
28. So, did you spend a lot of time on Facebook years ago?
No.
Not too much. So, Facebook was, the one that exploded.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, like, your mom was on Facebook, and she added you as a friend. And then your boss was on Facebook, and your boss added you as a friend. And then all of a sudden, your friends online is now turned into, like, people you work with and your actual family and everything. And then you start thinking, like, what have I shared in the past, or what have I shared, And so all that kind of happened. And then it was like, I feel like there was kind of a peak where everyone was on Facebook.
Yeah.
And if you weren't, it was like, wait, why aren't you? That's weird, And then things started to change a little bit, and now, and that was like, that was the only, that was the social platform.
Yeah.
And so now it's like, you start seeing, obviously, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, all these other ones. And now it's like, there's so many options that when I actually look at all this now, I feel like there will almost never be another point in time where there's one platform that everyone is on again. Unless there's some, who knows where technology goes in the future, but I don't think it's going to happen again.
No.
Where you have that many people all in one system like that, connected.
Yeah.
I don't know, but so yeah, our social media class is that's a good class.
Social media is awesome. I remember talking to my buddy, and he's having a hard time in general. Like, he's going through a phase of depression mixed with anxiety, and just really bulldozing through. Sometimes you just got to bulldoze through some of these things, and he's just like on medication now, and I was like, can I ask you something? And I said this in a kind way, but I was like, how many hours a day do you spend on TikTok? I know he likes his TikTok. He said 7.5 hours a day.
Oh my gosh. Does he work? Does he have a job?
He does work from home.
How do you? Oh God.
So I said, listen, and I promise you this. I'm not a psychologist, nor take this advice literally. I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. But I'm like, I promise you, as a buddy, if you delete TikTok today, you're gonna also throw away those depressants and all those anxiety pills.
Yeah.
You're gonna toss them. Like the biggest thief of joy is comparison. And that's what social media is, right? You go on there and somebody has a Porsche, you want a Porsche. Somebody has a cooler bike than you want a cooler bike.
The biggest thief of joy.
Right?
That's your new t-shirt.
All right, I need a new website for it. I think I'm going to call it Dustin.
The biggest thief of joy.
Gosh.
Wow. Yeah, it's, I don't know. You know, years ago, I would see I think we had a buddy who once a year, he'd post an update. That's it. He'd take the whole year off, and then he'd just kind of chime in and maybe let his family know what he's been up to, stuff like that. I was like, God, I wonder what that'd be like, And so, but yeah, mentally, I'm in a whole different place than, back then. Not that it was bad or anything, but when you think about how much time you spend,
could be a side business. You could be running a side business, but you're sitting on TikTok or social media, making other people money. And I hear this a lot actually when people are like, I use social media for business purposes. I'm like, that's great. If you're actually making money or you're an influencer, that's fantastic. But if you just say that, for your company, you don't have to answer this question.
Yep.
But do you actually get a lot of leads through social media?
So yeah, it's a great question. No. I mean, no. It's and that's another reason. There's I need to focus time where it's going to be the most impactful, and so it's tough. So running ads can be different.
Yes.
And so we have taken another approach with ads recently, and it's a roller coaster as well, but it can be fun and exciting, but you got to keep a close eye on it, and we even we did some kind of extremely low-priced promo packs with multiple products, and kind of the point where people are looking at really they're selling that for that cheap, this and this and this for this price. And we started this at the start of the year, and we actually had a really good response with it, but then we got behind with shipping, and so we'd update, the product, so it says this will take 5 to 10 business days or whatever, just to give people a heads up for new orders. But a lot of the old orders, we got behind for a while, and everything got caught up after a few weeks. But we started seeing people on social media leaving comments like, "I ordered this, X amount of days ago. I haven't received it. Is this a scam? Is this a scam?" And you see this word "scam" in these comments, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay. I'm like, okay, we got, and so, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's crazy. And that's only one platform. Then you have all these other platforms as well, which makes the most sense, and so we've tried running ads on 5 right now. We're probably more focused on Facebook and Instagram, but I start wondering, okay, what if we go back into YouTube or go back into TikTok or wherever, and it's just it's crazy.
It's seasons. I think it's seasons. It's always keeping a close eye on it, and if you're not doing it, you hire somebody else to do it. But it's always Facebook can work phenomenal now, and then in a month it's I've never really had any success with social media.
Yeah.
It's primarily just updating my current clientele.
Yep.
I'm still here. What's up? I'll post once a month, whatever. But people who truly, it's saturated. It's so heavily saturated. And if you want to do the whole ROI, like bid strategy, the whole marketing, like let's see how much we can put into ad, how much we can get back to it. It's a whole full-time gig.
Oh, it's insane.
It's a full-time gig. It's so much work. And I'm like,
insane.
it's fun, but then you got to know that it's giving me a mega time investment. And it's still watching it, making sure it's fluxes, you pivot, you change, you get different content, you get different taglines, whatever, like all the headlines too.
Yep.
That's...
Rob and Alex have been running a lot of our ads lately, and even last weekend we had a day. And talk about how do you handle yourself in stressful situations. We keep an eye on spend and then compare it to what we've brought in sales. And I can't remember. I don't know if it was Saturday, but we had done, I don't know how, maybe like $700 in sales or something, but we spent like $1,200 or something in ads. And I'm like, okay. Let's pause this and let's change our strategy tomorrow. But that hasn't happened too often, but it was like, holy cow. And so, if you're not keeping a close eye on it, like the hours that these ads are running, everything can get off balance real fast. And now all of a sudden, like, okay, we still have all these orders we got to fill, and we've spent way more than we just brought in, but it's not like you can cancel the orders or anything. Like you still have to, fill all the orders. And so, and we try to, the more information you can collect and basically analytics on all this stuff, the better decisions you can make. And like, was this the right ad? Was it targeted to the right person? Was it there's just a lot of dynamics to it all. But that was
Gosh,
something new every day.
Something new every day in the office, huh?
I met a guy snowboarding, and I don't snowboard often, but I went with Jared and David the other day. I met this guy, Jake, and we started talking about work, and he did a vending machine thing, and then we talked about the logo I was wearing and told him that was our project, and he's like, wait, the one that I see all the ads for online? And I'm like, no way, you see our ads? I'm like, he's a random snowboarder. I'm like, he's seeing our ads, and I'm like, well, okay, targeting is working, but we're worried. It's all our biggest followings here in Minnesota, and we're worried a lot of the ads are kind of retargeting in Minnesota when we want to keep trying to expand out. But man,
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Social media.
What's next on your event philanthropist situation?
You say event?
Let me rephrase this. If somebody's interested in supporting your causes, and if somebody wants to donate for some kind of cause like the Polar Plunge or any other event that you're part of, like anti-bullying, or I know you did some work with the Fairview, right, with the mental health projects. If somebody's interested in like, man, I want to jump on board with this, Dustin is doing incredible work. What's next on the agenda, and how can they do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Recently, obviously with our Polar Plunge, people have been donating to that, so that's been a great one. But I really see our bike park that we had for about a decade, everything is in storage. Yes, I have everything in storage. There's 3 semi-trailers, like everything is safe and sound. We just need a home for it. And I do see a future with our bike park still. That's why we have it all. I've had many people reach out about, oh, can I take this from the factory, or can I buy this from the factory, and like kind of pawn things off or whatever. I'm like, that's the first step to this never returning. So everything's there. We still have everything, but I do see a future as a new nonprofit to start fundraising again to bring back the life of our facility. And we still don't have an indoor bike park really in any of the surrounding states. I mean, it's so I still see a great need for it. So I think that that would be the spot in the future. I think in the meantime, supporting us with buying a product, I mean, that helps more than anyone would ever know, you know?
Yeah.
And even right now, like we have all these great sales running, like just supporting, buying a t-shirt or buying, you know, just like I went and bought Mike Laird's frame or the magazine subscription or whatever, like, and like I see a handful of friends and buddies and names I recognize every once in a while. Someone places an order, like, thank you. It's like, it's awesome to see, you know, people supporting, you know, what we're doing. So, and that helps support our entire team, and that leads into all the events we're doing. And then, like you said, there's the youth mental health night with Fairview. We met with today, actually.
What?
Yeah.
Oh
we
my
had
gosh.
we had a call today, and this will be the 4th youth mental health night that we've done. I think they've done 5. We went in on the 2nd year, and they've had us back every year. Yeah, that's up north in kind of the Iron Range area.
Nice.
And it's really cool. They gave us a tour of all the mining, all the stuff they do up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just started planning for this year. It's usually every mid-June. So, and then they also opened it. It's at the Minnesota Discovery Center.
Okay.
So there's a lot to learn. And then the event is one night, and then the next day they opened their own mountain bike trails on the property that kind of goes into the mine, the old mines. And then so we try to do our own mental health day on that Friday, and we all take off work and just do a day of riding bikes together. So we've done that the last few years.
Incredible.
So, but yeah, I mean, any product that is purchased goes to a good cause, and supporting a great group of people, and just keep it going.
I love that. And then you said you're kind of on and off on social media. So if people want to follow along with your journey or any kind of updates or something cool you're doing or new event or like whatever it may be, where can they do that?
So Ride Brand is our main one. Ride MN was kind of the original for the brand, for their apparel in Minnesota here. Ride the Factory was our old bike park one. And then my personal one, Grice, is just Grice, Grice. That one, that's one I've just taken a break from. So
Okay.
lately, a bunch of buddies are like, we film clips or whatever, and everyone's sharing their stuff or whatever. And I just, stay offline, and they're like, why do you share? You're like, how do you do that trick? And then you don't post it online or whatever. And, and so I don't know. I've thought about, I'll put stuff on YouTube every once in a while, but, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Just so that way people kind of are in the know of.
Yeah, and those Ride Brand and Ride MN, the team's running that, daily. So as people have questions and stuff like that, like those are active accounts, Ride Brand and Ride MN. Incredible.
Any final word for the listeners? Anything you'd like to gift them with your words?
The greatest thing in life has been finding an activity you enjoy doing, and no matter what happens in life, always continue doing that. And for me, it's been riding bikes, and almost strictly BMX bikes over the years, which I always say kind of ruined the bike ride for me. I can't just like go on a bike ride now. Like I never have been, but now I've been more open to different types of bikes. So I got my first like 26-inch dirt jumper a couple years ago. I got the fat bike. I was talking about the plunge, and now even being open to these e-bikes and the whole new wave of the electric machines, has been kind of on my radar. And then I finally moved forward with one of those. So even yesterday I was ripping around on that thing, and so I think no matter what happens in life, whether it's work, or family or friends or what, there's always going to be ups and downs. But if you find something that kind of takes you into a different place and you can escape, whether that's hopping on a bike and pedaling or on the throttle or drawing or dancing or yoga or podcasting and editing or tech or writing code or whatever, I think, that it helps, keeps us sane. And I'd maybe even say two different activities like that, because I feel the same when I'm actually writing code and riding bikes, but you can get burnt out, and so having a balance of both in life always keeps life well.
Incredible. Gosh, this was an incredible podcast.
The first one.
The first
situation.
What's the situation? Oh, thank you guys for joining me and Dustin talking about everything from the moon to the stars. I hope you learned something. We'll catch you on the flip side.